Mo Salah has just sunk Manchester City's title hopes, lol. But definitely put Liverpool in a position where they should probably go on to win the league. But the question I have is, what more do we think he needs to do to win the Ballon d'Or this year? Like, what is the recipe for Mo Salah to eventually go and pick up this crown that I don't even think he's ever been in the top three of, if I'm not wrong? What is the ingredients?
I think if he definitely wins the Champions League, then he's won it. That's for sure. And I think if they get to the final of the Champions League as well as win the Premier League, then he's won it. I think we know the fact that the Ballon d'Or realistically for the last sort of 10, 15 years has been a little bit of a joke in terms of who gets it. It's almost always been players in La Liga. It's always been players in Spain apart from last year. And that was like an international crime, the fact that Rodri won it over Vinicius Jr., which in itself was a bit ridiculous. So I think players in the Premier League have to do twice as much as players in La Liga to win it. But if you're looking at who has been the best player this year, I don't watch enough of Barcelona to give like Rafinha shouts, who obviously has been producing mad numbers. But for Salah to do it in the hardest league at the age that he's at, and the fact that I know the Ballon d'Or is best voted on like the player who's been the best in the last 12 months, but the fact that he's done it for so long and he's had such longevity and he's now in his best season at 33 is insane. So I mean, I think he should win it, but the Champions League would secure it surely.
I don't even think we need any nuance to this argument. Like,
Mm.
just look at the numbers. He's got, I think, 51 goals and assists in 38 games. He's on, I think, 41 goals and assists in the Premier League now. 26 goals or 25 goals, 16 assists. It's
Mm.
absolutely ridiculous. It's never been seen before in the Premier League. Like, we've had greats like Henri, Cristiano Ronaldo, Luis Suarez, who did not hit these numbers. These numbers are absolutely absurd, and I believe it will go down as the best Premier League season in history. And if he got injured tomorrow, it's already looking like one of the best
Yeah.
Premier League seasons.
Yeah.
And he's got 11 games left, and
Yeah.
slot doesn't rotate that much, so he might play every single one of those 11. And who knows what the numbers will look like? He's got Southampton in 2 weeks.
That's
It's
a hattie right
crazy.
there. That's a hattie.
Every week we look, and it's like, it's one of those ones where sometimes players will have this start to a season, and you'll say like, "Oh, he's on track for this," and Salah has actually just kept being on track every single week on week, and ultimately, the reason why Liverpool are gonna walk this title in the end is because they have the greatest Premier League attacking season of all time. And also, I would argue, one of the greatest Premier League defensive seasons in the way Van Dijk has been. Um, so all credit to Slot, of course. He has put the pieces in place. But when you have those two Premier League all-timers at their peak of their powers, it makes the whole system a lot easier.
Yeah, there's nothing more to really add. Like I hate it as a Liverpool player, but at the same time, like I can't say that I dislike him as a guy. I think he's an incredible player. I think he's a great ambassador for African football. For like, he's just amazing. I love the way he carries himself. I love the way he's kind of consistently gotten, like, all the great players, the greatest players always adapt. They understand like where their physical abilities either wane or get better. His footballing brain is unbelievable. I know that you have to, like, Allison needs to aim for him when he's clearing the ball, and it's great on his part, and Szoboszlai does a lot of his running and stuff like that, but his hold up play yesterday and his ability
Oh, he's
to
a
bring
bully,
people
man.
in
He's a bully.
yeah, to and I know he's up against a City backline, which was, quite, vulnerable at times, and a bit insecure at times, but Mohamed Salah is just, he'll strike fear into anyone, and I'm really, I think he will probably not only get a Ballon d'Or, it'd be sacrilegious if when you win the league, because I think it's kind of going to happen, and I assume you'll go far in the Champions League. Like, to have all of that plus the individual season, it would be stupid for him not to win it. And on that note, I think he'll go down as one of, if not the best African players to ever play in the Premier League.
Even without the Champions League at this point, I think
Yeah,
if Liverpool got knocked out in the Champions League in the next round, I don't see why it shouldn't be Salah. This is this individual season, and
yeah,
you
unbelievable.
can't. I understand what you're saying, Kim, because it does happen so often. But I think this is exceptional circumstances where it isn't just a good goal scoring season, like when Haaland got, what was it, 38, 40.
Yeah.
Uh, Salah's going to go 30 goals and potentially get 20 plus assists, which has only happened from Messi. Messi
Mm.
and Henri did it. But again, Salah's is going to dwarf Henri's in terms of goals and assists total. So I think also now it's about time where people will admit that Salah is arguably, it's not clear cut, but I think he's arguably the greatest Prem player of all time. I think him and Henri, there's a debate to be had. And if you're an Arsenal fan, I'm always going to say Henri. But if a Liverpool fan said Salah, there's not so much that I can argue against it.
No, I
He's
think,
forced himself into a lot of big debates now. Like this
yeah.
season has taken him to a whole new level. Like it's absurd. And if he doesn't win the Ballon d'Or, there's no other player that gets ahead of him for me. No, I don't think anyone gets close, frankly.
My only thing is, I agree with Kim a little bit that if Vinicius wins the Champions League and the La Liga, like because of everything that happened last season, like he cried about it, they cried about it. Madrid have so much power that I think he might just win it just because of all of that noise. Whereas, like, also I think Salah's highest ever finish is like 11th. I could be wrong, but he's like quite far out. So for him to go from I think he
finished fifth.
He finished
when Mane
sixth
finished
one
third,
year, I think. I think he finished sixth one year. But for him to go from like sixth to first or fifth to first, and Vinicius is going from 2 to 1, like, I don't know.
Easier jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question's not whether he deserves it. I think any of us who watch him week in, week out think that he deserves it. It's just whether he will win it. And I think if Madrid win the league and the Champions League, I think it's almost certain to be a Madrid player. And if Mbappe continues to score like hat tricks in the Champions League and get some crucial goals, because it's all about those. The thing that might do for Salah is the fact that it has actually been a relatively straightforward run for Liverpool to win the title. They haven't actually had to win any huge games in huge moments. And I think that's kind of sometimes where the Ballon d'Or is won and lost as well. Not saying that that's right, but if Mbappe scores a Champions League final winner, or that's happened before, and I think the fact that Rodri won the Euros with Spain helped massively. The fact that the year before he scored like big moments, and I think maybe because Salah hasn't had that. If Madrid are to pick up the double, I would be very surprised if it wasn't one of those players, because we know how the voting goes and we know how it's weighted to certain teams. But obviously, for us who actually watch Salah week in, week out, surely we all know.
Said also, if Liverpool do go on to win the Champions League, it will be considered one of the greatest individual seasons ever.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much it will go down as, I guess, one of the greatest domestic seasons and like an infamous season. But then if Liverpool do win the Champions League, the conversations this specific season will be, obviously you got the Messi freak season, which is untouchable. Did they win the Champions League and League that season?
I honestly can't remember.
I'd be shocked if they didn't. But actually, that was during the Real Madrid.
But that didn't he get? Was it 91 goals and assists? Like, how did it?
It was a calendar year. That's the problem. So it was 2012.
Yeah, he beat Gerd Muller's.
Yeah. I mean, 91's insane. Like,
but you know, if Mo Salah does win the Ballon d'Or, like, there's already an argument to say he's one of the greatest African players of all time. Does this make him the greatest African player of all time?
I would say so. I think so. Like, obviously, people will go like peak for peak, etc., etc. But I think obviously Samuel Eto'o's won everything, by the way. So there is that factor. But I think the fact he's done it for 9 seasons, and in his first season he got the joint goal scoring record. In his last season he'll probably get the joint goals and assists, or one of his last seasons get the joint goals and assists. And I genuinely think like he's carrying this team to the title. Like a lot of people, I saw a tweet saying like it'll be really rewarding because it's pretty rare in football you see a guy have like a peak season and then they get the trophies to go with it. Like Suarez obviously for Liverpool, Henri was it 03, 04, James, 02, 03, where he had like that amazing
02, 03,
where you didn't win the league. So it's quite rare that those two things happen at the same time. But then also respectfully to the guys Salah's playing with, like his front three are not exactly helping his life that much. Like it's not Firmino, Mane, Salah. It's not Aguero, Sterling, Sane. It's not Messi, Neymar, Suarez. Even in Suarez's year, Suarez, Sturridge, Sterling with Gerrard behind them. So he's like very much so doing this with like all the way.
Salah's been involved in 64% of Liverpool's goals this season. Do you know how like that is such an outlier? If you look at any season, the highest ever is like something like 40%, where you'll have, I don't know, Van Persie for Arsenal when we were shit, but 64% of goals and assists. That shows that.
It, and he just does deserve it. And I think like even as I hate you lot. Obviously, I hate you lot, but like it's just from a footballing point of view, like you want you want justice at the same time. As like I remember when Nedved got beat out for the Ballon d'Or when he should have won it, and that was in my early stages. I thought this is a disgrace,
Yeah,
but now it's like I'm sorry. I'm jealous of the fact that you have someone like Salah, and that's the biggest compliment I can give you. He deserves all the plaudits that's coming his way.
I will very quickly say one other thing, which is going to be extremely unpopular, but I think there is one other reason why he may not win it, and I think people can fill in the blanks. And if you can't, tweet me. I'll tell you what the blanks are. But let me just very quickly read the Ballon d'Or winners, and it will start to make sense very quickly. Because I think there has been another couple of seasons where I felt maybe he should have been in for the running, and like we said, he's finished fifth as the highest. So like, let's go. Rodri last year. Messi the year before. Benzema has won it. That is the outlier. So if you're putting the thing that I'm talking about together, but there's Karim Benzema and there's Mohamed Salah. Like anyway, I don't
Well,
think
he would obviously also be the second African to ever win it behind Weah
Weah.
in
which is
1995.
which
Based on
is
what I'm looking at.
mental. Because I think there's a year Eto could have won it. I can't remember what year it was, and he was unbelievable. But I don't think he was anywhere near it.
5, I think that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Liverpool City. Kim, I don't feel like there's that much we need to discuss about City because, like, we do ESPN together. We've obviously done the pod week after week, and I think you've pretty much said it over and over again. And therefore, I'm like, unless you're desperate to say something, we can probably skip this game.
There's no new information, is there? There's nothing that's new. Just City need a whole overhaul of players. I'm amazed at the performance of some of the players. I didn't think we were that bad in that game, to be honest. Yesterday, I thought we dominated large parts of it, but because you probably allowed us to. I mean, we were never ever going to score. I think had Haaland been fit, it might have been a bit different because our wingers did cause you a few problems and we put in a lot of balls into the box. But if you've got Phil Foden in the middle, there's kind of no point in doing it. So it might look good on the stats, like putting in 20 crosses. But realistically, they're never going to hit your man, especially when your defenders are like they are. And then we're just so susceptible, aren't we? I mean, conceding like that from a set piece, it's a great set piece, but like there's like 3 times when it should be stopped and then it gets deflected over the keeper. It's just a bit frustrating, but story of the season, really. I think it came out today that Jack Grealish, De Bruyne, Stones, a few others have been told to find new clubs at the first week of the transfer window. Yeah, that's being reported at the moment, which I think is just massively needed. And the thing with City that my mate said yesterday, which is kind of the only new thing that I would talk about, is like when Pep had his first season and it went really bad, and we knew that there had to be like a whole revival of players because we had like Bakary Sagna at Kolarov playing centre back. But like when you got rid of all the players who you knew were too old and you knew probably weren't good enough, there was still a core there of your John Stones, your Edison, who was really good at that point, Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne. You still had a really strong core, but now I'm thinking you take out all of the players. Who are the players who you actually really want left in summer? You want Erling Haaland. You want Rodri. Is that it?
That's crazy.
Genuinely, is
considering
that
one of your players won the PFA Player of the Year last season?
Is that the spine of the team? Like you obviously have to have Phil Foden because of how good he was last year, but how poor he's been this year. Hopefully, he gets back onto that form again. But that's like 3 players. Even Ruben Diaz has missed almost half the games this year because of injury. And if you can't rely on these players, like that's a huge overhaul to then win the Premier League again. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like there's enough players there that one season will be the golden bullet. But yeah, I don't know.
Just one player I wanted to ask him about quickly because he's a very interesting player to watch. Doku. What do you think of him?
I know Kim can't stand him.
He is honestly one of the most talented and like unguardable, to use a basketball term. I don't watch basketball, so I might be using that wrong. But he's so good in 1v1s. Every single time he will beat his man. And Trent isn't the best defensively, but Doku is so good. But after he beats his man, he does not know what to do.
Yeah, what's the point? What's the point? There's no point in him. He's just a highlights player. He's a 5-a-side cage player. That's all he is. Because there is no point. Like in the first 5 minutes, it was like, oh my god, he's just going to roast Trent. And like it is quite fun sometimes watching him roast Trent. And I'm not a huge Trent fan. And all those people who go on about how great he is defensively, it's nice when he comes up against Doku and you can just see him get skinned. But there is no end game. There's no point. Like it's fancy and it's nice to watch, and you know he's going to beat his man. I honestly can't tell you a time where he's put in a single good ball.
But
I,
he never lifts his head. Have you noticed?
yeah, like he just runs with his head down, which
But it's the same thing that we had the problem with Garnacho for ages when he
yeah.
broke through. But that was like, well, you're a young kid, you're gonna learn from that. And frankly, like all this stuff about the amount of chances Garnacho misses and stuff, I can only think of 3 that were clear cut that you should have buried or got on target. The rest are either hitting the post or maybe he's trying to be a bit too precise, but they get ironed out. But it's sort of like with Doku, I've never seen it where I have seen it a few times with different players, but not of like the level of the where City are aiming to be or have been, where he literally just he beats his man. He's almost so happy about that he wants to get. He's almost insecure about where the ball is at his feet at that moment. He's looking at his feet the entire time and before just digging it anywhere.
I think the one thing I would say, and I will always stick up for Pep in every scenario. I would say, like, related to the Doku thing, I think some of his man management has been really, really poor. I think it's just been really poor, and I think particularly with the wingers, and particularly really with Doku and Jack Grealish, is like Grealish will play every big game that we have to win because he's obviously a much better footballer than Jeremy Doku. He is just a better footballer. He knows how to play football properly, but he's obviously not particularly confident in front of goals. But what Pep will do is when Grealish will play really well and then score, he'll get dropped for like 3 or 4 games.
I don't think he trusts a lot of the players that he's currently got. Like they, and I think he used to do this rotation thing with Mahrez, Sterling, Sane. Like basically every forward he's ever had, he's never let them get like 20 games straight. But he always had bankers, and I think we said this 2 years ago when Mahrez left that like those guys are really hard to replace. Like the guys who are happy to come in like 20 times a season and make 10 substitute appearances, and every time they come in, they deliver. And I think like Mahrez had won a title. He's like one of these like clutch players, if you like. Doku and Grealish are not those guys, and so therefore, when you rotate to them, like I don't think you were ever getting the same level of output that maybe Mahrez would give you. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Just very, very, very quickly, I don't want to speak about City for too long. I do want to just mention Jack Grealish just a tiny bit and just get someone who's not a City fan's thoughts on it. What do you guys actually think of him? Because for me, I liked him before he came, and every game I watch him play, I've never seen him come off the pitch, and people have been texting me like he was terrible.
I think also he is kind of representative of City moving from the false 9 with the more dynamic Sterling and Sane wingers to Haaland. So with Haaland, you kind of need more players like Savinho, Bob, who aren't going to be the main guys. But because of that, it means A, when Haaland isn't in the team like yesterday, it looks horrific. And B, when Haaland isn't at his astronomical best, it's not ideal for you. Because to be honest, even when Haaland is scoring like an Isak or like a not quite Salah this season, but I think he scored the same amount of non-penalty goals as Salah this season, which a lot of people wouldn't realise. But because he's not scoring 40 goals, there's still a lack of goals in City's team because the wingers aren't contributing.
I also, but where I agree, like like your wingers aren't expected to do as much as maybe Sterling, Sane. I also still look at Grealish and go, he's got 12 assists in his entire Man City career. So it's like. And then people will say, but he plays the pass before the pass. And I'm like, yeah, but 1 assist in 20 Premier League games and 3 in 28 Premier League games just isn't good enough. Like, especially for a team that scores lots of goals. Like you have like, I don't know, like Luis Diaz, who I think is really poor in the final third. I think over the last 5 seasons, he's got 6 or 7 assists. So anyway, somehow we've given City so much airtime and I was desperate to talk about Arsenal. Let's talk about Arsenal. AFC James is here. Of course he is. What's your interpretation of what's been going on in the last 24 hours of like how things have unfolded? Because you've been tweeting a lot, you've been getting a lot of stick, you've been giving some stick back. I think at times you've been a little bit rattled. So now we're in a level-headed place. What's your takeaway from what seems like a title that Liverpool are definitely going to win?
It's actually interesting you say I got rattled because I probably see why you think that, but I'm not rattled by most people. I'm not rattled by the idea that Arsenal have lost the title. I'm not like rattled by the idea that Salah's done this. That I'm only rattled by the people who can't. So I want to give credit to Liverpool. I want to say, well done, Liverpool. You deserve the title. And then I get people saying, you said Saliba was better than Van Dijk. No, I didn't. You go,
No. Hold on.
I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about this.
Hold on a minute. Dev was here at the time, and I feel like Kim might have been too. You sat on here and with your chest said Gabriel is number 1. this season. I said no chance.
This season, I
Yeah,
said this season.
say that.
Also, it's still not far off. Anyway, I was getting accused of, your fan said Saka had overtaken Salah. Slot phase 0 versus Arteta phase 6. And I'm just bored of it. I'm like, can I say well done to Liverpool without these little jibs thrown at me?
No,
And what
James, you
someone said
can't.
was,
You
yeah,
can't.
just start blocking people on Twitter. So that's
Yeah.
what I've done. Not even in a salty way, just in a way that these guys are just wasting my time. There are a lot of Liverpool fans out there online who I like speaking to. Genuinely, I think the Liverpool fan base online is generally all right. But with all fan bases, some of them are absolutely insufferable and cause me so much misery. So I'm just blocking them. Um, so yeah, I would like to say well done to Liverpool. It has been a lot of Arsenal fans. The feeling is like exhaustion, and
Mm.
you've probably felt it as a Liverpool fan, where for so many years we've tried to keep up with City, and then this season it's kind of reflected on the whole team that a lot of the players have gone injured, a lot of just refereeing decisions gone against. It's just a culmination of things, and everyone's like, right, can we just have a break? So I have not a theory, but there's a thing where most Premier League teams can't challenge for 3 seasons in a row. If you look
100%.
historically, Liverpool pretty much every 3 seasons would have a dip in form. Even City have, I think I looked yesterday, it was like every 4 seasons were dropping from the level. Now, one of those times they still won the league because it was against United, and I think you finished on like 84 or 86 points. But I think to consistently hit over 90 points or even over high 80 points nowadays is just so difficult. And I think this season, the whole house has come crashing down. Everyone will blame Arteta. Everyone will blame X, Y, and Z. Several reasons are at fault. We've bought terribly in. We didn't sign anyone in January. We should have signed players more smartly in last summer. But I think the club just needs to reset, not get rid of Arteta, but next season will really be a time where it's like last season you fell short. You didn't push it close because I don't think it will be close this season. People can still hang on to these. Oh, if Liverpool lose this and if Arsenal win this, no, I believe it is done, and I believe it will be healthy for the club and everyone to kind of play with a bit more freedom, because you watch Erdegaard at the moment, he does not look like the footballer he has been. So we had a conversation on here about him being top five midfielders in the world, and people going, no, he's not top five, he's top three, and now people are saying Arsenal should sell him. So the club, everyone just needs to chill out a bit, and we're going to win the Champions League instead.
What I loved is right after the draw, Arsenal fans, not you, but Arsenal fans were saying, "Oh, get ready for Fletty in the semis," and I was like, "Brother, you cannot talk this way. Like you can't." Like a guy tweeted me after the result saying, "Like if we didn't have the injuries, we would have walked the league." I'm not countering whether Arsenal could have won the league without injuries. What I'm countering is the idea of walking the league or like we'll walk to the semis, like respectfully towards Arsenal, and Liverpool were in this situation too, but Arsenal haven't won the league in so long or the Champions League in so long. So the idea that like you could walk it, I think has almost like meant that obviously there's a lot of exhaustion with the fans. But I think because the hype and the hope was so big, the crash is just as bad now.
Mm.
And I thought, and everyone predicted Arsenal to win the league at the start of the season. And I keep saying football is very circumstantial. I think Liverpool have pounced on an opportunity, almost like they did last year. And actually, Klopp said last year, if you remember, we're not ready to win the league yet, but this team will be ready next season. And obviously,
Did
yeah. During the race, I had his quotes up earlier. But basically, he said this Liverpool Reloaded team was there for next season and not 23-24. And then they didn't sign anyone, just made attacking tweaks, obviously with Slot with the plan to go for the title this year. So I think, yeah, where I agree that like Arsenal have fallen short, I think football's circumstantial. I think we need to slow down a little bit.
And also, just kind of on the topic you're saying, this is why people saying slot phase 0, like, I understand the sentiment, but let's not be disingenuous. This isn't the start of a project, because Arteta really took over something that had nothing good going for it. You had to scrape out the bare bones. And look, he had Saka, but Saka was 18 at this point. So he had young players who also their contracts were uncertain. Liverpool were desperate for Saka at the time, and Arteta had to steer the ship. Klopp doesn't have to turn the whole. Sorry, Slot doesn't have to turn the whole ship. He had pieces. Now it takes a lot of skill to put those pieces in the right place, and I think he has. And I think the way he's managed it has been so impressive. But it's not phase zero. People people are using
The
these
phases
terms
have
wrong.
really got you, eh? The phase talk really got you.
Yeah, it bothers me, man. It bothers me. But no, because the thing is, the phase talk in the first place makes a lot of sense. There is a lot of value in it. But now everyone's kind of memed on it. And Arteta took Arsenal from 8th to first, to second.
Three-peat in second, you know.
Yeah, man. Well,
but
we might not even finish second. We'll see.
yeah, I mean, if you lose to Forest, that could get techie. Question to Dev, and not me and James, because we're obviously in this title race, and I have my opinions, but
All
and
right.
to you as well, Kim.
Jeez, I need
Uh,
to batten that down. You're not in the title race.
accidental swipe for no reason. I think we spoke on either the pod or somewhere else about like this season being a failure for
Yeah.
Arsenal. And Arteta, more specifically Arteta. Would you say, all things considered, they've failed?
Ooh. So you use a really good word there that football is circumstantial, and it is, but it's so what I've gotten good at this year, right, is really clutching victory from the jaws of serious defeat. And frankly, I will clutch on until my knuckles turn white of the fact that our worst period in Premier League history, we've had more trophies than Arsenal. And it's not something that I'm gonna be like, overly proud of, because like I say, the first sentence has more weight than the second one. But with Arsenal, it is like it was an upward trajectory for the best part of like 5 or 6 years. So, and I looked at that and said, I want that. And really, every time that I get into arguments with any United fans, I'm still like, we need to do exactly what Arteta did. Like, give Amorim the time. The depth of the job that Arteta had to do was massive, not as massive as Manchester United. When you hear like just an hour ago, we've announced 200 more redundancies. The problems are deep. So there's a lot. So we're falling further, but it's still, like you say, circumstantial and kind of relative to where we are. So I still look at what Arteta did and still like, yeah, you've been great to do that, but your goal was still to win something, and they've gotten really close, and there is, other teams would kill to be close. I would kill to be in Arsenal's position right now, getting close. Do you know what I mean? A lot of teams would kill to get close, but Arsenal didn't do all of this investment. I'd say the last summer they got it really, really wrong, and I thought that at the time. But overall, like, you want to win stuff, and I think Arteta might get remembered if he does leave at whatever time without winning anything. Let's put that out there. If he doesn't win a trophy, he'll still be remembered as the guy who helped you get through a massive period and get you through a lot of, struggle. But you're Arsenal Football Club and you need to win.
I think it's.
yeah.
By the way, I think it's been a failure of a
Yeah.
season. I think Arteta would say it, and I
Yeah.
think most people at the club would say it. Obviously, the Champions League dependent, but the aim was to, at least, as I say, the aim was to deliver a major trophy, or at least a trophy. But the other thing is, if that didn't happen, there has to be some serious context behind it. And the serious context isn't a 99-point season by Liverpool. It's a season that Liverpool are on course for 90 points, but we're going to end up on 80, 82, 83. That is not what the aim was at the start of the season at all. So, yes, context matters and shit has gone against us. I cannot emphasize. Everyone has these seasons where injuries happen. You had it last season, hence why you felt terribly short. It's happened for us this season, but the same way last season it was a failure for you, this season is a failure for us. And the way we bounce back will be interesting, because mentally it must be so draining, constantly feeling not good enough like that.
My genuine feeling is that you will never win a major trophy with Arteta. That is just my feeling. I think what he's done, as you mentioned, is incredible. I remember going to the Emirates. I said it to you like 5 years ago when City were playing, and it was literally half full, and there was no connection at all between the players, the manager, the fans. There was no connection. There was no cohesion. And what he's done is really, really impressive. He's rehauled the whole squad. He's got everyone playing for the badge, and that is fantastic. But at the end of the day, he spent £800 million with the goal of winning a Premier League or a Champions League, winning a big trophy. The last 2 years, you got very close. City, I think, were in charge of the table for 16 days, out of 300. You were very, very close. And then this season, City are nowhere to be seen. This Liverpool side aren't unbelievably groundbreaking. As you mentioned, they're probably going to finish on 90 points or just below, and Arsenal will be nowhere near. I just don't think. I think you'll look back in history and you'll think of Arteta as the guy who got us so close.
By the way,
and then got
I think that
replaced.
800 million is so disingenuous to say, because every other team also spent 800 million during this time. If it's Chelsea and they spent 1.5 billion, I understand. But apart from Liverpool, they're the only team that didn't spend as much as Arsenal in the Big Six. So sure, we can talk about Aston Villa's
We've got the
involvement.
third highest net spend since Arteta came in.
Yeah, because he took over rubble. You
No, but
had
but
players
also
who were
the other teams
sellable
are
at the
winning.
time.
The other
That's
teams are
not. That's
wanting.
not really the point, though.
Like
That's
I'd
not
say,
really the
like
point. Everyone
we're
else has won
we're
things.
obviously the worst one. Like we've been, but everyone knows we've been run terribly. It's almost like you guys had the right people singing off the same hymn sheet. You had to make certain like stuff go ahead. But even with almost everything going wrong for us behind the scenes, and I went into a deep dive last video. I don't need to do that here. But like with everything that's gone on behind the scenes, we spent horribly, and we know that. But there's reasons for that: incompetence. Whereas you guys
Don't
were
bring up
kind
the
of
Carabao and the FA Cup, Dev.
we won it, but the thing is, we'll go back and say we've been to Wembley like 4 times and won twice or 3 times, whatever. But like we could, if we somehow win something this season, I will never let Arsenal forget about it, because even during our worst, like it's like I said though, it's when you look back and remember it. Like Kim made a good point there. Like I think if you look back at Arteta, if he doesn't win a single thing, it's like he'll be remembered as the guy who lifted you from the rubble, but he didn't.
No
build
doubt,
us
but
from
I
scratch.
still believe he will. And I think
Mm.
as another thing that people, yes, we were favourites to win the title, no doubt whatsoever. But Arsenal still haven't gone into a season where we had the best squad. We didn't go into this season where we had the best squad in the league, especially considering how good Van Dijk and Salah have been. We didn't go into the league with
Yeah,
the
but
best
then at the
I
squad.
don't think
start,
you're
at
far
the
off.
start of the season, everyone said, you
Yeah.
said, we said, every pundit in the
I
world
thought
said
Arsenal were going to win the league because I didn't think
thought
Slot was going to do so well.
So that's what I'm saying. So at the start of the season, if you're going, our squad wasn't as good as theirs, well, our squad was still the same as the one last year. We just got a new gaffer. So if anything, you should have had more of an advantage because we got a new gaffer. Like,
Yeah, of course.
yeah. So I'm saying, like, if you were like the underdog this season and you didn't win the league, I'd go, yeah, your point makes complete sense. But you were like the favourites to everyone. Like,
Sure, but this idea that like Arsenal will never win a major trophy because this should have been our season. It's this idea that like Arteta has this like squad that is so far clear of everyone else's. He's, as I say, he still hasn't gone into a season where we have had the best squad.
It's not much worse.
Are the
though.
other teams so
It's not
far
that
ahead of
much
you?
worse.
But when Salah's putting up the season he has and Saka spends 3-4 months injured, then the gap is massive because we've lost our best player and they've had their best player.
But again,
Not even their best player,
but
the best
but that
individual season of ever.
but that is football, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you could arguably say like it's when you guys were having your best patch, it's like your team then probably like pound for pound or man for man might not be better than a Liverpool team or whatever, but you had something
We were
going.
punching above our weight. This
Exactly.
is the problem.
So it's like it has to work both ways, though, doesn't it? Like you can't just say just because Liverpool.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
outperformed-
though. But previously, 2 years ago, people thought we were better than we were because we were punching above our weight. We were not as good as that City team. People will watch clips and be like, wow, Zinchenko, this, and that. People will look back and say, Zinchenko was a bad signing. Jesus was a bad signing. They got us to be that team. But the problem is now, because our growth accelerated so fast, they are no longer valuable players for us.
So,
So
but
at the time,
I would still say, like, squad for squad, we
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
better first 11 than you. I actually think at times we've had a better first 11 than Man City. You know, when we were going head to head, like,
Yeah, I agree.
we had, like, we had Van Dijk in his peak, we had Salah in his peak, we had Mane in his peak, we had Fabinho in his peak, we had Alisson, and we had, like, 6 players in and Trent, like, 6 or 7 players that were better than City. But we've never had the best squad. Even now, we don't have a squad. We've got, like, we're leaning on, like, Harvey Elliott for minutes, like, in midfield, like, Curtis Jones, who had 3-4 good, decent games. Kwanzaa, like, your squad is better than our squad. Our first 11 is just better than your first 11. And that comes down to, like, I think, like, and Dev touched on this, you bought the wrong players last summer. And I think that...
yeah, but you say that, like, if Lewis Skelly didn't come through, we'd have been absolutely fucked in
Yeah,
left
but he
back.
did, bro. Like, you can't go,
That's what
like...
I'm saying,
But it's
Yeah,
like...
but you can't expect an 18-year-old who is a midfielder to all of a sudden come through as a left back
Well,
because the team needs
I
him.
mean, Rico Lewis did it, and then we won the treble.
Yeah.
Rico Lewis did it in January, and then City won all 3 trophies. So you can expect it because that's what football is, and that's why you spend millions and millions of pounds on an academy.
I don't think. Well, Pep had 200 million spent pretty much every year, so he had time to plan this pathway for Rico Lewis. Arteta hasn't. Arteta is still plugging gaps because we're trying to keep up with
But
squads.
the thing is, though,
11s that are
like,
far superior.
When Trent came in for us, it was because we didn't have any right backs available, and he had to play, and he played 30 games that year because we.
Yeah, but you wouldn't go into the season with that idea.
What do you
You
mean?
didn't go into the season. No one goes into that season with the idea. You just
Yeah.
kind of have to
You
rely
wouldn't
on
go
who
into a
knows.
season
Like when
relying on an
Rashford broke
18
through, it was the same
Yeah,
thing.
we didn't, and neither did you. Like we I think 10 games into the season, or 8 games into the season, right after the window closed, I think we had 4 injuries in defence, and Trent had to play, and then we had to play 30 games, and we went, and I think we finished that season 3rd, and we were like, people were saying we're going to finish 6th or 7th, and he was our best player. And in this regard, like where's we can't on one hand say like this left back so talented, like every week we're going he's brilliant, and on the other hand go, oh, but the gaffer was forced to play him, and like I hear your point to an extent, but then I also go like you shouldn't have bought Calafiori at that point because you need a striker. You shouldn't have bought I can't remember.
But I think the idea was that we were going to get a striker as well, but the board or Arteta or whoever keeps on failing in these instances. We
But
were
brother,
supposed
like
to get an
when I
attacker.
say like you like, there's a lot of similarities between Arteta's Arsenal and Klopp's Liverpool, and Kim will testify to this because we were going head to head. There were years where we were this close, and Klopp got nothing the next window. Like Chamberlain started a season at right back for us,
And that's why you kept falling short.
Yeah, but you have still topped up your team with like Marino and Calafiori. Like you have more money than we had for sure because we're still broke. We still only just bought Chiesa. So I'm saying like you at the start of the season, everyone backed you to win the league, which means the idea that like you kind of weren't meant to win it because your squad wasn't that good. Like your squad at that time, everyone backed to win the league.
Yeah, but as I say, I think the problem is people have this idea that Arteta's finished the project last summer and January was just, it's so disappointing. I can't say this. It was so disappointing from the board or Arteta or whoever. But we had to sell to buy, which plenty of clubs have been through. I don't think City have been through it, but Liverpool fans will understand this. Where to get Marino, we had to sell Smith Rowe. We loaned out Vieira to get. I can't remember who we sold in defence, but we had to get rid of these players before we were signing players. So we didn't go into the season with more depth. We went in with slightly upgraded players. Marino, who's disappointed, Calafiori, who's disappointed. But to really win the titles, as we've spoken about, you need to do more than that. And I thought we'd get through it. But nowadays, with the amount of games you play, you have to supercharge your squad. You can get lucky, or you can manage your squad well, as Liverpool have this season, as Arsenal have in previous seasons. But when everything comes crashing down, unless you have a super squad like Man City have had in the past, it's no surprise.
It's just a lot. It's just a load of excuses.
But to be fair, with City, like
Since Arteta took over, you've got the 3rd highest net spend apart from Chelsea and United.
Yeah, but
Got nothing to do with City or Liverpool. You've spent loads of money. You've spent loads of money. You've spent loads of money. You've spent it in the wrong areas. You haven't got the best out of certain players. Arteta's been too arrogant, thinking that he can go into a season without a proper striker and win the league, and then you're not going to win anything again this year. And you can talk about this year as much as you want. You've seen what's happened to City this year. They're the same players who were playing last year. Right now, you'd say that you have a million times better 11 than we have at the moment. That's the same players, just 6 months on from last year. So you definitely should have won it last year because nothing's changed in the City squad. It's not like we bought loads of players. It's not like we currently now have a better 11 than you.
And Rodri is out of the
A
team.
year
Who's your
older.
best player? Again, your best
few
player
months
goes out of the
older.
team and it comes crashing down. The same happened to us.
But I actually think if you watch City last year, and I think we did a few pods on it, like they were choking, like they were
really
scraping, they were really scraping in last year.
Arsenal were better than us last
Yeah.
year. They were you were the better team. You just didn't have the right minerals towards the end, and I just genuinely don't believe that the minerals will ever come under Arteta.
I think
I just don't think they
I
will.
really like Arteta, but I think the one thing we haven't spoken about, and we've spoken about it quite a few times, and I don't know if you agree, James, but we've defo spoken about how the mentality shift for Arsenal in terms of like, I read the thread yesterday, so I'll say it in his words because he definitely articulates better than me because he's a writer and that's kind of his job. But he said, about the Jurgen Klopp thing that this team would be ready, and he said Liverpool would go for the title and chase it down. And then for whatever reason, at the start of the season, Arteta decided to prioritize defense and go pragmatic, even with the injuries and suspensions. That mentally pushes you back. And I've felt this season. I think it was a shift last season actually, because was it like 6 months at the start of last year where you were playing like really good football and people were like enjoying watching you play, or maybe it was the end of the season before.
It was the end of 2024.
Yeah, and I think what ended up happening, and it's happened to Liverpool under Klopp, when you come up against City, you get PTSD. Like they hammer you into the ground when you think you're at your peak, and then you get scared, and you scared maybe is the wrong term, but you become more pragmatic and you become fearful of losing games. And I think, and I know you disagree with this now. It just reminded me because I tweeted it and you started coming after me with all the AFC James fanboys. But I think Arteta is fearful of losing, and we actually agree on this before. Like he tries to control every aspect of the game, and that's why I think you're a little bit expressionless. That's why I think you're boring to watch. That's why I think
Yeah, but that's true. But as I literally said, at the end of last season, we won 16, drew 1, and lost 1 at the end of last season, and were the best form under Arteta that we've ever been. So yes, we've had a shit season, but you'd have said last year that we became a pragmatic team, and then we went on to win 16, draw 1, and lose 1, only bettered because Man City had a historic end to last season. So I think to say people reminisce, and obviously as a neutral or as a Liverpool fan, you thought we played way better football. The same way a lot of people nowadays will go, "Oh, Wenger ball was better than Arteta." No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. We were shit. We used to get dicked 6-0 by Chelsea.
no. But when why are you saying
When
Wenger
it was
ball like
peak.
yeah?
I'm talking no, but I'm
Oh,
talking
okay,
about
wait.
people.
Yeah.
People will put clips from Wilshere scoring against Norwich and reminisce.
Oh no,
like
you were
crazy.
horrible. Yeah, that period you were horrible.
I loved watching that football, but we were not a better team. And also, that football doesn't exist nowadays. Very few teams play like that ever.
Yeah.
But do you know what is the thing with, like, obviously I'm going back in the archives for when we were good, but like everyone who's won a league will know that it's like so many things have to sort of align, and there are the intangibles of the game that start to like come into play a lot of the time. Like we were winning leagues with Tom Cleverley. Like you don't necessarily need the best player in every position in order to win it, but you do need a sort of a us against them mentality, or like an ignorance for everything else that's
I
going
think. Sorry
around.
to
But
interrupt.
no,
Dev,
but
'cause
what
go on.
I was going to say about Arsenal is like you don't have it's just that next bit. I don't know what that next bit is, but also
It's winning a title.
no, but
Once
no,
you
what
win
I'm,
it, then
no,
you
what I'm
can
saying is
afford
what then
adversity.
gets
Before you win it,
what
you
then
can't.
gets you to that point. Because what I'm trying to say is now we go into, because like last season, obviously even before the window starts, we're saying Arsenal have like just forget what's happened. We think Arsenal are going to win the league because you expect them to have a better window, and all this goes on. They haven't had the best window. I can't really say that many other teams around them had a better window than them. So you think, oh, maybe they'll just continue where they're going. We'll see what happens. But now we're in a point where you could go another trophyless season. Let's say you do, and then you have a summer where other teams are looking at your players now and saying, "Oh, you've been trophyless for how long? Do you want to come over here?" Like, and some people get swayed by it. Some people don't. We don't know what's going to happen in the backroom staff. Are they going to help Arteta? Are they not? You're going to have the same problems, and then you have similar results, and then it starts to go down. Like it's a very, take this from me, like it's a very easy way to slip into that negative spiral. And also, if they're not careful, they're going to start sliding down.
I think it's less the title, as in by that I'm sure, I think you mean the Premier League, right? I think it's trophies. So like when we eventually won the
that
league,
winning habit.
yeah, we'd been to 2 Champions League finals, lost one against Madrid, won the other one against Tottenham. We'd won a Carabao Cup, we got to an FA Cup final, and we lost a Community Shield. So we'd been like in the ring against the best 5 or 6 times over, and been scarred a few times, and got
And you need that. You need that
yeah,
to
yeah,
then win the title. Like,
and
I think
that's
also you're lucky that the Champions League final came against Spurs. It was a bit of a gimme because the one against Liverpool, the one against Madrid, had you faced Madrid again, I think.
then you could say like, oh, Man, you were lucky that they played. Like, oh, you could say
No, no.
you
Of
could say like
course
we were
not,
lucky
of
we
course
played
not.
Chelsea in double finals. Like at that time, Spurs were as good as anyone to get to that point, if you remember, because they like
Yeah, but Spurs hadn't been blooded. Like
yeah,
you're saying,
yeah,
Liverpool had been blooded. So
yeah.
everyone needs to get blooded.
But my point is, blooded is a crazy statement.
Yeah.
My point is like, my gripe with you this season is, yeah, you're not won the Premier League. I don't think you're going to get to the latter stages of the Champions League. You're out the Are you out the FA Cup? You're out the FA Cup, no?
Why? By the way, why are you so? so sure we won't get to the last stage of the Champions League.
Well, you play
I
PSV,
th-
and I think you'll beat them, but then you play Atleti, right?
Well, or Real.
Yeah, you're not going to beat those two guys. Like, they're two of the best teams in the world, and you're not that good right now.
I think the truth is, and I get why people get defensive when they support a particular football team, and you hear criticism from a fan of another team. But I feel like Arsenal fans are very, very defensive about one topic, and usually when a fan base is so defensive about something, that means there's probably a little bit of an acceptance that is true. And I think it is quite clear to anyone from the outside looking in that there is a bit, whatever you want to call it, there's a little bit of a mentality issue. If you think that it'll be solved by winning a major trophy, you might be right. But to get to that point, you have to solve the mentality issue. And I do think that is what Arteta is suffering at the moment.
Liverpool,
And that's what he's suffered so far.
Nubaid, you know, because Liverpool didn't win a Prem for 20 years.
Yeah.
What caused the mentality shift at Liverpool?
So the guy who tweeted me saying Arsenal will walk the league. We had this discussion, and it got to the point where he realised he was absolutely wrong, because I said the mentality shift came from winning trophies, right? Like, and he was like, "Yeah, but you didn't win anything. You didn't win the league for 30 years." And I said, "Yeah, we didn't win the league for 30 years, but in the time we didn't win the league for 30 years, we won 4 FA Cups, 4 Carabao Cups, 2 Champions League, a Europa League, a Super Cup, and we were in 6 finals and finished second place, I think, 5 times maybe. Once under Rodgers, 3 times under Klopp, and once under someone else. In that time, in Arsenal's 20-year gap between winning the Premier League, Champions League, Arsenal have won the FA Cup 4 times and nothing else. And I think the shift
But
comes...
once under Arteta, though.
Yeah, right.
Once under the current manager, which should have helped.
But I think that was that was almost like a dystopian version of Arteta's Arsenal. Like, that was like a bunch of guys he probably didn't even really trust, to be fair, because none of them are there now, or
It wasn't
not
his
very.
team, was it? It
And
wasn't him.
Aubameyang won them the final type vibe. But I think the mentality shift after 30 years, even the year we won the league, like, we were desperate, we were on our knees, and I think I've said this to you about Arsenal, that like the desperation can end up causing you problems to winning the thing, because you're like, we had to be so far clear of City. I think that year we were 17 clear at one point, and they were done by December. They were done. And I think I've seen this stat that, like, in Guardiola's last 10 years of management, he's lost the league twice or 3 times, whatever it is, and the team in December has been 12 plus points clear. If we, even this season, I said it as well, and I've been suffering from the PTSD live on the pod. If it was City behind us and City beat you guys that day, you won 5-1, my feeling would be completely different, because it's them. And I think the mentality shift even now hasn't fully come around, but it comes when you compete for trophies. It comes when you play Madrid, and obviously Salah broke his arm, but for 30 minutes we were unbelievable. It comes
it reflects in the fans too, because the fans, as Kim kind of is alluding to in a disrespectful way, is that a lot of our fans lack composure. That they kind of expend so much energy, this excitement, nervous energy, but it reflects in the stadium's atmosphere so much. People are like, "Oh, it's only Twitter." No, it reflects in the stadium's atmosphere so much.
Also, it's just noise, bro. Like, noise. Obviously, Arsenal and Manchester United are going to be talked about a lot. They get clicks. But the one thing Klopp did really well is he reduced the noise. Like, Slot's done it this season. And I think the more noise you have around yourself, the more people are talking about you, the more pressure you feel internally. I think Van Dijk did an interview at the end of the season. We finished second on 98 points. And he said there was so much outside noise that towards the end of the season, it became difficult to start to concentrate on the games we were playing. And I think with Arsenal, like, whether it's this red card this weekend, this one was actually legit, or like whether it's a yellow card to the manager and the noise behind the scenes, or like there's just constant noise and constant, like, something's happened with Arsenal again. Oh, Arsenal are in the news again. Like, you have to diffuse that. And I think I said this before, like we spoke about it last week. The best thing Slot did after the Merseyside derby is said, "Look, man, like, I got this one wrong." And immediately people went, "Oh, what a nice guy." Like, because he just, and Klopp
By
did
the way,
this.
Arteta does that a lot as well, but people perceive it in a very different way.
But
yeah, but he's got more faux pas than, like, oh, well done. Like, he's had a few where he has been
and also
evidently rattled.
Klopp
I also don't think it's disrespectful to suggest that Arsenal have a mentality problem. It's
It's
so obvious from the outside.
You're saying it in a windy up way. That's
I think, like, Klopp in his early 3 seasons, like, people forget that. People keep referring to Klopp's football as rock and roll. The reason we won the league that year is we stopped playing rock and roll. Emre Can and James Milner would come on the 70th minute every single game, and Klopp became less rock and roll. Klopp stopped saying stupid stuff in the media, and that changed the noise around our team. That's when the love for Pep started, by the way. Like, the romance between them two started when Klopp decided he wasn't going to beef him every 2 minutes. Remember, Kim, like, there was like the whole thing in the Champions League where like the bus was like, we threw like bottles at the bus and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
that was too much noise for us to handle because we can't handle the noise. Like, it's almost like when it's like it's like, imagine you go out with like four of your best mates and all four of them are better looking than you, but you're all making the most noise. You need to be the one. You need to be the one that doesn't make noise because you ain't got that yet. Like, and we were doing too much of that.
But this is what Klopp realised, which I think Arteta hasn't realised at the moment. And I know you'll come back on this, but this is genuinely something I think is like Klopp did it where in certain moments, like the Champions League, whenever they played City in the Champions League, he would put like so much emphasis onto that one game, which meant that of course Liverpool were going to win the league because they just had everything within them to win the league. The fans then like destroyed the bus because there was a lot of emotion attached to that game, but it never worked out over a 38 game season because there was too much highs and lows. And I do feel like Arteta needs to realise that. I feel like when you beat us 5-1, I understand the fans when I came on. I understand fans celebrating. But there seems to be like too much emotion attached to like individual moments in the season rather than taking a more composed measure, which I think Klopp realised after like, it took him a while,
Yeah,
right?
you
It
lot
took
did
him
that
like
a
2 or
lot
3
as well, yeah.
years to realise to like, actually, let me just chill out. Let's just set the team up. If we lose, if we win, whatever. And that's why I think Slot's done so well.
I
I haven't heard him or seen him raise his voice once, apart from at the ref like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think also, as you say, the fans don't help because Arsenal fans jumped onto that stay humble thing so much, which meant Arsenal, any rival fan and all the media jumped onto it as well, which spiraled it so far out of control.
Yeah.
In another instance, if Salah just did that after scoring against Man United, because Salah used to celebrate against City, it wouldn't be a big deal. It wouldn't be that much of a big deal.
Yeah.
It would be a Man City versus Arsenal thing, which is fine. But as soon as everyone got involved,
I mean,
it's like, all right,
Jar-
Arsenal are fucked.
Jared Bowen on his Instagram story
Yeah, no.
posted saying humbling plus
And
3 points or
Anthony
something.
Gordon did it.
And
So
I'm
every
like,
team now there's a fucking target on Arsenal's back,
yeah.
the same way that the title winners have every year,
Yeah.
and we haven't won the title. It's so stupid.
That's where I go, like, reduce noise. Like,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah, you have to.
only gaffer that I think could make noise and get away with it was Ferguson, but he won everything so many times over. Like,
But
until
you
you
say,
don't,
but also, on that point about making noise, like you guys have just everything that you said, it points to the word like you need a cerebral sort of figure in charge of your football club in order to get that sort of success. Because one thing Sir Alex was really good at is that when he did have a feud, he lit it only to when he wanted to, and then as soon as it was a bit like patriarchal, a bit much, but like if then someone then came out in the media and said something about it, he'd ban them from the press conference. He'd do all this.
Yeah.
Like I'm not advocating for it, but that's how you have control, and you're not. It's a different era. Like you probably don't have as much control over certain things, but it is like all I can think of is that Sir Alex or the best managers, when it came to the be humble thing, or even when Klopp was doing, the bowing in front of the cop when you drew 2-2 to West Brom, it was looking at sort of things like that. And when Kevin Keegan did it and all these meltdowns, or Rafa Benitez, I even remember when Ranieri won the league, like he played it down every single time because it's like, A, anything can happen, but B, if shit does happen, then you know that you've always got your own sort of like authority to stand on.
just don't make noise. Like,
Yeah.
sit in the background as much as you can and make the noise when,
Or make
especially
noise once you've won.
Let the
yeah.
success
Like,
speak
I
for
think
itself. Don't
it's
make the noise yourself. Let the success.
anyway. Very quickly, to wrap up. In fact, we're gonna have to save this for another episode because it's gonna take us ages to talk about. We're gonna talk about Burnley's clean sheet record. So please, Burnley, keep that record going because we need to talk about it. But before we wrap, I don't know if you saw Jamie Carragher's comments on the AFCON. Basically, what it seemed like, and he's gone on Twitter now to say that isn't the case, but he kind of like scoffed at the idea that AFCON is a major trophy. With this debate around Mo Salah winning the Ballon d'Or. And where do we sit with this? Because obviously the World Cup is like the pinnacle of football. Like if a player wins the World Cup, like if Salah was to win the World Cup and there was one this year, he wins the Ballon d'Or, hands down. Then what's next? And then what's next? And then what's next?
He says a lot of silly things, Carragher, and he always ends up apologising. And I think to disrespect AFCON in the way that he did is obviously not acceptable, given how many unbelievable footballers have come from that continent. But I do think that a conversation has to be made around the competition itself. I think it is obviously below the Euros and probably on par with Copa America. But I think all African players and all big African presidents of countries, football presidents of the countries, have made the same complaint of the competition over and over again, which is that the funding isn't right, the pitches are never up to standard. So I don't think that the organisers of the competition themselves help themselves with AFCON being seen as a bigger tournament, as big a tournament as it probably should be. But I think to completely disregard it is pretty insane, especially when you're looking at how teams from that continent have done in the World Cup over the last 3, 4, 5 competitions. Obviously, Ghana got to the quarterfinals, Morocco semi-finals in the last World Cup. So it's a bit ridiculous to dismiss it, but I do think there needs to be a bit of changes to how that competition is ran, because there are so many top quality players there, but it isn't given the same respect both outside and inside as the Euros or the Copa America.
Yeah, and I think we're pointing towards like socio-economic issues as to why the AFCON isn't anywhere near where it should be, but also like it was disappointing. Like you mentioned Kim, like I put this in a tweet and I had to delete it because I was like I knew this would get somewhere and I just had to go. But I was like, he's made too many faux pas statements for it to just be consistently ignored. Like we know what he's done. Countless amount of times, either making your fellow broadcasters feel a certain way, or what you did to the fan on the way back from a game, and like all this stuff, it gets brushed under the rug. And like even the most recent Neil Mopai dismissive comment versus the Miles Lewis Skelly highlight, and now you got this. I'm just like, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouths here, but I just think if someone looked like me and said that you don't get a second chance, and it really irritates me that that does happen. But also, I think the nature of the conversation actually gave him a way out as well, because he was just saying a perfectly fine statement in the sense that he's not going to win a World Cup, so it's even harder to be in the reckoning, which is a totally fine statement. Studge and Michael Richards then end up saying, like, I don't know why I said Studge like a gnome. Daniel Sturridge, Michael Richards end up saying, "Oh, what about AFCON though?" It was the perfect opportunity to just retreat and like, "Oh yeah, good point, fair enough." He doubled down, and I'm like, mate, a lot of these African countries, like, you ask any of them, they want to win AFCON, and also every single a lot of World Cup like campaigns. I think about Nigeria Super Eagles, I think Ghana 2010, I think Morocco recently. They almost use AFCON as your run up to these types of competitions, so you see how good they're going to be. Same with the Copa America, like Argentina won it just before they went and won the World Cup. Like you see that approach to it, and it's like how European nations look at the Euro. So it was really annoying. Careers have been made at AFCON, so if it is small, like it's clearly not that small. So yeah, very disappointing now, and I'm annoyed that you said it, and it just adds on to a list of things with Jamie Carragher, which is really disappointing.
He's mentally protected. He's protected in a way which I can't really understand for someone who is obviously very, very good at his tactical approach when he speaks about football, but he's not so good that he should be getting away with all of these consistent errors that he makes. I mean, even take away the spitting, take away this disrespectful comment, take away all of that. Like the fact that he alluded to the other day that Erling Haaland didn't want to face Rudiger, and then when Pep called him out on it, he pretended it was a joke. It's like, bro, we've got it in 4K.
I think
we know it's not a joke, and he keeps on doing it.
Someone tweeted saying Carragher spent too much time on the internet that he's actually becoming a troll, like
so true.
on TV, and like because I think if I think back like 12 months ago, and even when I watch his analytical pieces, a very clever football watcher. I know that's not a real thing, but I don't mind listening to him talk about the game because I think he talks about it quite well. But when you make comments like Haaland was scared of Rudiger, like he didn't fancy it, like that's not the case. Like that's going to rattle people, and it's the most outlandish thing you can say.
A responsibility as a person in that position, also as a person who strongly controls the narratives, which he knows and uses to his advantage, that he shouldn't be making statements like that because he knows how many people will pick it up and run with it. But I don't know, maybe it's because he spends so much time with the camera on him, but he consistently does these things.
One thing I will say, and we've got to wrap now because James' laptop's about to die, Mo Salah would definitely rather win AFCON than the Premier League. And I know Carragher and many of the Scousers will not accept that as the reality, but I absolutely guarantee you that is the case. And I'm a Liverpool fan, But if Pakistan were in the Asia Cup, I would rather watch Pakistan win the Asia Cup than Liverpool win the league. You could call me a fake fan, whatever you want. I don't care. But anyway, that is all we've got time for. As every single week I go 45 minutes, you always end up running to an hour and 10 minutes, and I have to chop 11 glorious minutes out. But I might start doing like bloopers or extended cuts at some point. But if you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're watching this, make sure you drop a like, follow the guys. See you in the next one.